Today we're going to be discussing COVID-19 perspectives and launching your own practice with special guest Randy Cox. Welcome to the Law Firm Launch Podcast.
Randy Cox from Feldman Wasser. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Good morning, Jaimee. How are you?
I'm great. You are officially my fourth podcast participant. Lucky number 4.
Okay.
And whenever we first were kind of coming up with this concept of, we knew that we wanted to put content out there for lawyers on how to grow their law firm, whether it was starting as a solo, starting from scratch, or whether they were at a plateau period where they really just wanted to launch from there and grow even more. And there's a lot of resources that are out there, but we wanted to create something that was conversational and informal and really talk to, other lawyers that have built a successful firm and that manage a successful firm, and being able to share knowledge in that way, I think is really important. That we're not overproduced and we really are giving people practical, good advice that for any of those lawyers that are looking to start up a firm. So I'm just so glad to have you because, with the size of firm that you have and kind of functioning in that management role, I just think there are so many lawyers out there that are hungry for learning from other lawyers that have experienced some success. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Happy to help.
Yeah. So let's just start off with, we can't ignore a global pandemic, right?
Right. Yes, we know that now.
We can't ignore a global pandemic, and it has certainly created some, nuanced challenges that we wouldn't otherwise have. And so I'm wondering, let's start there. What are some of your key lessons learned specifically during the pandemic? And it can be professional or personal or, fun. It really doesn't have any definition around it. What have been some of your key lessons learned?
Sure. Well, certainly professionally, I think you learn overall that it reinforces somewhat that it's good to have good practices. Some of the practices you have, you're thankful you have them. In no particular order, one, it helps to have some cash reserves. Find some way to set aside cash reserves. There were a number of firms that, solos particularly early on in this, that were laying off people right away. And, that certainly impacts your ability to get work done. So that's obviously good practice, having a good cash reserve, having good technology, and every link in it, and honestly having some alternatives. So whether it's you have a laptop and or desktop and you have a tablet of some sort, it's good to have because of the technical problems you run into. It's good to have good IT support. Although I will, one of the things that we heard reported and we experienced here is there was certainly an increase in, hacking attempts and malware and spoof emails, and a lot of that. We had an email breach, which is something that none of us touch, and that was of some concern. So certainly having all the tech, because you rely on it so much heavier, and of course what goes with that is being familiar with your tech and how to use your tech. Yeah. And you can easily find all that. It doesn't take long to find most of it. And certainly once this got started, there were a lot more resources out there. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else? I think it's helpful to keep a schedule. That's one of the things that I found very helpful. And I think it's helpful for people here in the office. Not everybody did that, but I think that that's helpful. And, use your, and then more broadly, use the time you have to, think about things, whether it's office improvement, thinking about, do you really want to be where you are? Do you really want to be doing what you're doing? Whether it's a firm or practicing law or, those types of things.
Yeah.
That's sort of the professional end of it. More broadly in terms of practical, I think it also, we talk about good practices and good habits. It's very helpful to, you'll learn that you exercise and do the self-care and those types of things. Those things are very important. And if you have that as part of your routine, it's helpful. You may have some time to refine that a little bit, but those things are good.
Yeah.
You learn this brings out the good in people and the bad in other people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting. You learn who responds to stress better and who does not respond to stress as well. You learn who your friends really are. Sometimes you learn who is valuable in your network and who is not.
Yeah.
And another recommendation.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you know how to cut hair, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You should learn how to cut hair, or know somebody that does. That's a good thing. So, but
That's
take care of yourself anyway. So those are my general observations.
It's interesting because some of the things that you shared, professionally about, having the importance of cash reserves, the importance of having strong technology infrastructure, and embracing technology across your business. It's just you wouldn't think that those would be things that we would need to mention to people, right? As a good idea.
Right.
And especially though I think it is in an industry that really hasn't embraced, maybe not necessarily the cash reserves, but just the idea of managing your law firm like a business, right? And really thinking of yourself as a business owner, not just a lawyer that is a practitioner, is important regardless, pandemic or not. But what's been fascinating is during this pandemic, it's really forced, whether they wanted to or not, a lot of firms to embrace these things that really should be embraced otherwise, cash management, looking at your books from a CFO perspective. And if you don't have that perspective, getting a CFO who does, it's so important. And, the leaning on of technology, hopefully we never go through another global pandemic in our lifetime.
Right.
But I am hoping that the firms that weren't already embracing technology and work in the cloud, the things that have just kind of lingered in our industry for a long time, I'm hoping that they keep. I hope this isn't an exception during a pandemic, and that they can keep experiencing the positives and the benefits that come from embracing a healthy cash management process and also technology. So I think those are really great pieces of advice, because as a lawyer might be starting up a firm or trying to grow, they're critical to being able to launch and to grow. So that's awesome. What about some good things? What are some really good things that you've seen during this pandemic?
I think having the time to and embracing the time, which is hard for a lot of us to do, but embracing the time, the newfound time you have to work on hobbies or things you have enjoyed doing or want to enjoy doing. Certainly the time to work, on your friends and spend more time with, your friends and your network. And those, that's been nice to be able to do. You find yourself having a lot of the more phone conversations and Zoom conversations, and you find yourself having with a lot of people more time to talk to them, and maybe colleagues that you don't know very well, but there's an opportunity to certainly expand and refine your network. And it certainly gives you more time with the self-care that I mentioned, to do some of those things and to refine that. And it gives you just time to think about whatever it is you like to think about, or not. Some people I've talked to have not particularly enjoyed the additional time they have to think, and some people do.
Yeah.
So those are certainly the things that I think, good things in terms of your friends and your network and being able to work on yourself.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I remember on our weekly calls a while ago, one of the attendees sharing about painting, right? And loving to paint, but having set it down for a decade or more. And I think that's cool. People reading again when they kind of stopped reading. And it's amazing how that, while the pace has stayed fast for a lot, it's slowed down in a lot of ways as well. And not having, after school activities for children, while there's the loss of those things, there's also the gain. And that's the having more time for yourself, or to go on a run, or paint, or play games with the kids. And so, yeah, I definitely see that, those things as being incredibly positive. Outside of a pandemic, if you were to give, your top, few pieces of advice to any lawyers that are wanting to start up their own firm, or to start up a firm, even if it's a group of them starting a firm, from your experience, what are some of the top 2-3 things that you would tell lawyers that are wanting to do that?
I think, one, have a plan, if you will, and really as part of that plan, probably one of the most important things I can think of is take advantage of the resources that are available to you. And that includes really specifically people, the people resource, and certainly the professionals that you have. Because I think particularly when you're starting a firm now, with everything that's available now, you owe it to yourself, certainly down the road, to do it right the first time, because it's so hard to change. So certainly I would encourage people to do that. I think it would be money and time well spent to, get the professionals you need to help you get things set up. If you don't understand, I really think that's invaluable. And I think that could give you a huge leg up, because we're not trained to do that. And many of us, we're just unfamiliar with that. So yeah. I think that's huge. 2, I would encourage people to be diverse, not only in terms of practice areas. And again, there's going to be a lot of different opinions on this, but be diverse in your practice area, but also be diverse in doing something outside of your practice area that's possibly complementary. And whether that is teaching or writing or consulting, used very generally, but if you can develop something like that, and that ties very closely to, having a bar network and or a volunteer network, and then even diversifying within that. One of the things that I have found during this, some of the volunteer organizations that I am involved in, there has been a vast difference in how they have responded and kept members engaged or not, and provided services very generally or not. And certainly back to the healthy habits we talked about. Keep your healthy habits. Make those part of your routine. It's much easier if you, schedule exercise or meditation or reading or whatever it is, but keep those as part of your routine and schedule them. If you're a scheduler, do it, and you have to make time for those. On the very practical end, it's make sure you understand retirement, retirement options, funding retirement and health insurance, and you need to get in on that at the ground floor, I think, and you need to pay attention to it. Certainly the health insurance and retirement both are very important. If you did not have those set up appropriately going into this, it might have been an additional source of a whole heck of a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And let's see what else. Setting up your own firm. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
The other thing is just more generally, and again, this is something you hear too, but it's important. It's, be civil and guard your credibility, and don't be afraid to ask for help, which takes us all the way back to the first bit. But those are the things that would occur to me that I would tell somebody going out and starting their own firm.
I love it. I think I love that advice, because it's practical, right? In so many lawyers, I say, when they're deciding to start up a firm, the decision is more about what they're running away from, not what they're running to.
Right.
And when you can have that healthy conversation around, well, the why, why are you doing this? It helps fuel, the energy that goes into setting up your business for success, instead of just jumping into the deep end, which I think is too oftentimes what a lot of lawyers do. And then they get a year or 2 or 3 years in and they wonder, well, why is this so difficult? And I love that you said start with a plan, because I think too many times, firms don't start with a plan. And especially ones if you're going into partnership with others and you haven't had those difficult conversations about, well, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? And, you don't want to wake up one day and partners all be on a different page in terms of what they want the firm to be. Because if those conversations don't happen out of the gate, you're going to have a much harder breakup, years down the road. So absolutely. I love that you started with a good plan,
Yep. And your plan should not be save as much money as you can.
Right.
You need to be willing to spend some money, I think. You have to be prepared for that. Most of that will pay off.
Well, it's a business, right? And any business, most business owners see investment in the business as just that, an investment. And if you start looking at your cash as, well, more cash in my pocket is my priority, my goal, then you may not get to the growth levels that you really want your firm to get to. I mean, this is the Law Firm Launch podcast. So, lawyers that are listening to this are wanting to launch. And that launch sometimes does take investment and, giving something up today for what I know I have to gain tomorrow. And I cannot wait until law firms, law schools really start embracing the idea of teaching lawyers how to run a business while they're in law school. Because I hear from lawyers all the time, well, law school never taught me, how to run a business. But, there are 47,000 law firms in America. And 95% of them are under 20 lawyers. So we've got a lot of lawyer business owners out there that never had that education and training and could be reaching so much greater impact. But I like that you emphasize it's, not just the impact internally, but also for the greater good, and how you give back and how you're connected to society, because that really is an important part of brand reputation. And an important part of the firm having longevity is that connection to the community. So
absolutely,
that you offered those pieces. This has been great. I just remind for anyone that's watching, how many lawyers are at your firm right now?
10.
10 lawyers.
Yeah, 10. Several of them are part-time or on council, but 10 total.
I love that because, I like having a diverse range of people on the podcast. And we've had, a firm owner on here with 35 lawyers. We've had a solo practitioner that's a mediator, and another firm with 12 lawyers. And I think, any lawyer that's looking to launch a firm, having that goal in mind of what they want. They might want to always be a solo, and that's great, right? But there are some really key business practices that I like that you shared that are practical, whether you're a solo or you're a 10-lawyer firm or a 30-lawyer firm. Having a good plan in place, knowing your resources that are available to you and reaching out to those resources and building that network, all those are really important and critical no matter your size. So I think that was really great advice no matter where the lawyer is on their journey of starting their practice or whether they're looking to grow from where they are today. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. Happy to help.
All right. This has been awesome. Have a great day, Randy.
Yep. Hey, take care. See you, Jaimee.
Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to hit subscribe or go to legalbackoffice.com for more info.